All right. I think we're ready to rock and roll. Let me just minimize this and go into my presentation. Welcome, everybody. My name is Yannick Benjamin, and I'm sorry for the background. If you can see, that is got some paper up so people can't see inside the restaurant. This is a restaurant that I am going to be opening in the month of May, pretty soon. It's called Contento Restaurant, and I'll go more into that shortly. But it's such an honor and a pleasure to be here in front of you all. And I want to thank everybody from Be the Change for inviting me and for really giving me a platform. It means a lot. I think this is an important subject. We're going to discuss on how we can make restaurants barrier free, more open, more inclusive, particularly those with people with disabilities, and also for the staff as well. But before I go to any of that, I want to just very slowly and carefully Be the Change Job Fair Code of Conduct. Prioritizes the safety and well-being of our speakers, candidates, exhibitors, and staff above. With our mission of creating a diverse and inclusive wine industry, we have implemented a code of conduct to ensure the job fair and affiliated events are safe spaces for all identities. The values we stand by: one, participate in an authentic and active way. In doing so, you contribute to the health and longevity. Two, Be the Change has a zero tolerance policy for harassment and discrimination. A, harassment and discrimination includes, but is not limited to, offensive comments related to gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, disability, mental illness, neural atypical, physical appearance, body size, age, race, or religion. B, threats of violence. C, incitement of violence toward any individual or their group generally. Deliberate intimidation. E, unwelcome sexual attention. Continued one-on-one communication after requests to seize. G, microaggressions. Small, subtle, often subconscious actions that marginalize people from oppressed groups. H, minimizing other people's experiences. I, deliberate misgendering of any individual. Unwelcome comments regarding a person's lifestyle choices and practices can result in the immediate and swift removal from the event. All future events hosted by Be the Change at the discretion of event organizers. Three, if you are notice that someone else is being harassed or have any other concerns, please contact event staff immediately by emailing hello@bethechange.com. So thank you for being patient. Some really important stuff. And what I really want to start, I want to give a little introduction on what I do here in New York City. Again, my name is Yannick Benjamin. I started Wheeling Forward Sales. It's all within the same umbrella. And Wine on Wheels really ent company that was created to raise money and awareness for Wheeling Forward. And what we simply is we step in to help recently disabled people that lacks a support system, and we help to provide them with services that they might need. A lot of the individuals that have a disability that we do help often come from very poor financial backgrounds. And in case you may not know this, having a disability is incredibly expensive. Even if you have the best, and even if you're provided with Medicaid, it can be incredibly expensive. As a matter of fact, put one person with a disability and compare them to somebody that was able-bodied, their lifestyle would be 28% more expensive than the average able-bodied person. So think about that for a moment. So automatically, 30 cents dollar pretty much means that I have to use that to buy things that may not be covered for my lifestyle. I always say to people the best way to give you a simple perspective, and I might say things that may sound unusual to you, but I really want to give you perspective, incredibly important. I tell people every time that I use the bathroom, it costs me $10. That mean? Well, some of you may not know who I am. I'm a paraplegic, which means that I'm paralyzed pretty much from the chest down. And that also means that besides the fact that I can't, I don't feel, okay, so no sensation whatsoever below that area. And what that also means is that I've completely lost my motor, my to be able to use the bathroom with my bladder. So I don't have that sensation of feeling when my bladder is full. So I have to be very systematic about it. And in my case, I have to catheterize, and usually I have to catheterize at least 7 times a day. Catheters themselves, and if you don't know what they are, you should certainly look them up. They are very expensive. I myself have to use new catheters for each time that I use the bathroom. Some people can reuse them, and I can't because if I do, I'm actually prone to urinary tract infections. And if some of you have urinary tract infections, they can be actually quite ugly and incredibly invasive. A few months ago, I did have a urinary tract infection, and I was completely out for a couple of days, and you've got to take antibiotics. So incredibly expensive lifestyle. And oftentimes I get asked, don't people with disability work more? Well, it's very simple why they don't work. A lot of them are on the lower income side of things. So they are on Medicaid. And Medicaid, in theory, is probably the best insurance you can get because they cover all of your everything depending on what state you're in. However, they have income restrictions. So if you give someone the opportunity or someone with a disability to go work, the first thing that they're going to ask, besides how much are they going to get paid, is what kind of insurance are they going to be offered? Because there's probably a good chance that if the moment that they start working, they will lose their insurance. Now, why would that be the case? Why is that insurance? Why is that insurance so important to them? Well, they can lose their home attendant. That home attendant is what gets them up in the morning, gets them changed. They can lose all of their supplies, just like I'd explained. In my case, would be catheters, some medicine that you might need, all vital to your success as a human being to go to work every day. And so that's the real issue. Now, one of the biggest issues that we have facing the industry, the wine and hospitality industry, is poor, adequate health insurance. I myself, it's one of the biggest challenges that I have for myself. Now I'm very lucky because I do have a very good job. I have something steady, it pays the bills and all that. But back then, a few years ago, when I was going on interviews, the first thing I would ask is, what's your insurance plan? And they would tell me very superficially, most of those individuals did not know what the specifics of their insurance plan was. They couldn't tell me if I would have 180 catheters covered. So I'd call up the insurance company. The other issue that I had was some of these insurance plans would not accept that I developed a really strong relationship with, would not be covered on their specific plan. So people with disabilities are incredibly limited on the choices that they can do. First off, with work, but also specifically in the hospitality industry. And of course, and with restaurants, we have a terrible reputation of closing restaurants without really having a backup plan for your staff. So if you're someone with a disability, you're going to this restaurant for 2, 3, 4 years working there, and you're highly reliant on their insurance plan, and all of a sudden they shut down without really telling you, you're in a really bad situation. Now, of course, the backup plan would be to apply for Medicaid, but that can take up to anywhere from 90 days to well over 180 days. A little bit about myself, I want to go specifically about when I was in a car accident in 2003, I was 25 years old. I started working in the hospitality industry all my life. Since I was 13, my family's in it, my mom, my dad. And one of the hardest things for me, as far as the transition of going from able-bodied to disabled, was actual social acceptance. Now, of course, it was incredibly difficult to have to deal with the fact that I was never going to walk again. Also, incredibly difficult to have to deal with the fact that I was going to have to retrain my body how to use the bathroom, and other issues. Not being able to feel my lower body is problematic. If you're spinal cord injured, like I am, you deal with a lot of pressure sores and skin issues. So it's something that you have to be very aware of. This is a high maintenance injury. But the world of disability is very broad. So I should never be compared to somebody who's in a wheelchair, because each person is different. What's really important. And I just want to go over some categories. I think it's really important. Hard of hearing. I think this is really important. And we should know that. I think hard of hearing is something that we should use more often. Be very careful with the terms that you use. Be very sensitive. Even, I'm sure we've all done it. Some of you have done it without realizing it. Things like, hey, what are you, deaf? Can't you hear me? Don't use that. Be aware, okay? And hard of hearing doesn't necessarily mean that the person is 100% hard of hearing. It could mean partial, but be aware and be sensitive, because you don't know who you may be working with or who your client is, because they may be hard of hearing. Low vision, again, low vision encompasses all broads, I mean, in categories, meaning that there are those that are obviously fully blind. I have two cousins that are blind, and I have a couple of friends that are blind. They're absolutely remarkable people. Um, but even simple terms like, what are you, blind? Didn't you just see that? I know that if I was low vision and I heard that in front of me, I'd find that quite hurtful. So please, again, be careful of those terms that you use, especially in restaurants, because I hear that a lot. And I'm pretty sure prior to my injury, prior to me being in a wheelchair, I probably used that as well. Um, Mental health. I think it's something that we simply don't talk enough about. Prior to myself, there was Tahira and Bobby Stuckey. They did talk about mental health. Something that's still very much ignored. It is a disability that can sometimes be even worse than physical disabilities. It's incredibly challenging. I know myself, I've gone through my own battles of mental health, particularly when I first got injured. And it can be incredibly difficult to overcome. And that is definitely a disability in itself. And we should show more empathy to those that battle mental health. I have all the respect for people who constantly have to wake up and fight through those bouts of anxiety. It is not easy. I know myself that there are moments where I go through anxiety and it's very hard and it just takes own life. But I've kept myself very structured. I do a lot of breathing exercises, and it's what's really helped me get through those difficult moments. Developmental disability, those that have Asperger's, autism, um, Down syndrome. Again, some of the most amazing people, some of the most brilliant people. I've heard that many times. Again, people are still using the word retarded. Don't use the word retarded. I don't care what the context of it is, should never ever be used. I have friends that have a developmental disability, and it's incredibly hurtful to them. Even saying things like, come on, hurry up. What are you, slow? There's something very negative about that. I would urge you to be very careful on how you use certain terms. Um, People with developmental disabilities are sometimes, and I think oftentimes, not sometimes, oftentimes taken for granted. I feel like they certainly have a place in the hospitality industry. Unfortunately, we're too ignorant to reach over the aisle and try to invite them. And I think they would probably do a great service for us and help improve our industry, both in wine and in hospitality. But again, terminology is very key. Again, those are just two terms that I just said to you, like, terms of like being slow and using the "what are you, retarded?" kind of term, don't use that. Terrible, absolutely terrible. Again, I just talked a little bit about physical disability, which would be someone like myself who uses a wheelchair full time. Um, Amputees would be in that category. I would even probably put in people that have neurological a neurological disability. Spinal bifida would be an example of that. So, and that's kind of a broad term too. So, mobility would be a good example of that. So, that's all within that kind of context. And then emotional disability. People say, well, that's not a disability. It absolutely is a disability. I know a lot of people who have had a lot of harm and trauma caused to them, and it stays with them, and it greatly affects them, and it's very hard for them to move on. So very important. Terminology is very key. I just want to say one little story before I go any further to give you an example of how terminology can be very hurtful. Last Tuesday here at Contento Restaurant, I hosted a small little event, and I was cleaning up, and there were about 10 people, and I was saying, excuse me, please, can I get through? You know, I'm in a wheelchair. It's not the easiest thing. And this one woman out loud said, oh, just be careful, don't roll over my toes. And I said, oh my God. I said, are you serious? And I kind of exploded deep down, but I just kind of out loud said, could you be a bit more original? And obviously there was this awkwardness and moment of silence because I hear those terms a lot. Or I'm going to give you a speeding ticket if you're going too fast. Or again, don't roll over my toes, things of that nature. It's exhausting. I don't want to hear it. It can be very hurtful all at the same time. And it's also embarrassing. And even though you think when you're saying, I'm going to give you a speeding ticket, even though you may think it's funny or you're trying to be cute, in some ways it's really patronizing. And most people, I can assure you, don't want to hear little terms like that. So just be aware of those little jokes. A simple, hey, how are you? How can I help you? Things like that go a long way. Finally, I think what's really important is don't forget there's invisible and invisible. And I went over the different categories, but I think this is really important because I myself would be someone that would fall in the category of a visible disability, right? You see me in a wheelchair. So there's probably a better chance that I get more empathy than someone who's just walking around, looks quite healthy, maybe a smile on their face, but they would fall under the category an invisible disability. And what you may not know is that maybe they have a developmental disability. They may also have an emotional disability. They also might have heart, they might be part of the hard of hearing community. So this is very, very important that you just don't assume. And this is why we're having these conversations to not assume and to treat everybody on the same playing field. Very, very, very important. So before I go even deeper into that, I do want to tell you where I'm at right now. I'm at Contento Restaurant. It's located in Upper Manhattan in East Harlem on 111th Street between Park and Madison. This project was started 2.5 years ago. And my objective with this restaurant that I wanted to create was that I wanted to create a place where all people with disabilities and all people from marginalized communities would be able to come here and feel incredibly comfortable and safe. Um, what's really unique about Contento Restaurant, it's that it's proudly powered and operated by myself and my dear friend George Gallego, who is also a paraplegic, and he was also my mentor when I first got injured. And he always wanted me to open up my own restaurant. And he was the one that actually found this space. And he said, Yannick, I think we have a space that we can create and make our own. A safe, a barrier-free place of work that's incorporating empathy and compassion, and also incorporating an employee training program. We just don't want to have people that are clients that have a disability or from other marginalized communities. We want to make sure that they're actually working here as well. So how do we go about that? What did we do to make this different, right? So first off, we want to, when we have the menu, we want to make sure that there's a QR code or so when they scan a phone, those that are from the low vision community will be able to have the menu recited back to them. So they will have equal access to the menu. I talk to many people that are from the low vision community. There is nothing more disheartening for them when they go out to dinner or to lunch with a friend or on a date or with their wife or with their husband or whoever, their mother, their father, and they have to have their guest read the menu to them. Now, all of us here that are here, if you're working in restaurants or you're in the wine community, you can all have a QR code and have a menu ready for them. That is so easy. It's not complicated. Please do that. A Braille system of raised dots too as well is something that can be done as well. A kind of, and if you don't know what Braille is, it's a system of raised dots that you can just kind of touch, and it's their language for those that are part of the low vision community. So Braille, but if you can't do it in Braille, you can definitely do it in the QR code. Very, very easy thing. Another thing that can be done in restaurants and also in wineries is make aisles wider. The ADA requires that 30 inches of clearance is required from one aisle to another, and also doorways should be easily accessible. I know myself, one of the hardest things that I have to deal with is oftentimes I call up a restaurant or I even call up a winery to ask if their bathroom is accessible. And they say, yes, it is. Of course, when I get there, it's not accessible. I can't get in there. And oftentimes I have to get escorted to another establishment so I can use their bathroom. For some of you that are watching this, you may think this is very costly, and it is in many ways, but the long-term return on investment is so much better. The reason why a lot of people with disabilities do not go out to eat is very simply because they have anxiety and that fear of rejection and having to go, you get to the restaurant and then all of a sudden you have to get carried up. Or if you're hard of hearing, you have to go and then all of a sudden, usually you imagine you're hard of hearing and no one on the staff has any kind of way to communicate with them. And so that's also something that we do have to improve upon. But again, make the bathrooms accessible, grab bars, open the doors wider. Also, touchless little machinery like the napkins, the serviettes, garbage cans should be touchless. Those are all quite inexpensive. Why touchless? Because we're also talking about people that might be double amputee, but that don't have the use of their hands, quadriplegics. So that's why we do those kinds of things. So very important. How do you make your establishment better for people with disabilities? Your staff should be prepared to offer any additional assistance required. So, but that is up to you as a leader to make sure that they're trained to do so. So make sure that your tables and seating arrangements are comfortable for somebody that has any kind of disability, okay? Also, you should also practice mock services, right? And maybe bring in guest lecturers from certain communities. Bring in someone from the developmental disability, bring in someone from the low vision community, bring in someone from the mobility community to speak upon how they can make your restaurant or your winery better. Making sure that all your guests feel welcome and well serviced is really important. This is a follow-up, but provide employee training. Absolutely important. You know, we don't talk enough about how to deal with people with disabilities. And if you don't talk about it, your staff's not going to be educated and they're not going to know how to deal with it. It is up to you as a leader and also as an individual to take the initiative and empower yourself. Incredibly important. Your employees should receive awareness, training about disabilities, and how to facilitate people with disabilities. Help your employees understand several types of disabilities and how they can affect specific tasks in the restaurant. Employees need to be aware of how they can help. So you build that safe space for the actual guest, but also it's important to keep in mind that you may have an actual employee that has a disability. And if they do, you need to learn how to be patient. There's also something called reasonable accommodation. Some people that have a disability may need some time off during their shift, 10, 15 minutes, because as Bobby Stuckey had previously said, one might have asthma, one might have some issues with their ankle, and that's a disability at that moment. So they may need to take a little break. Be patient, have empathy, and work around them. The more you empower them, the more empathy you show them, the more they're going to return. So this is very, very, very important. As far as dealing with the guests, when I talk about patients, when you are dealing with a disabled person, do not be in a hurry. Train your staff to wait with the to train your staff to wait with patients for instructions from the guest. Usually the guest who has a disability will tell you what they need and what they may not need. Don't try to be overbearing, try not to be over pushy, but just simply let them know that you're here for them. Okay? That's really important. For example, cognitive or hearing disabilities may require servers to repeat themselves. Don't ever get frustrated. I've seen this before where sometimes the waiter or the manager thinks that the guest is actually mocking them because they're saying, "Can you say that again? I'm sorry. Can you say it slower?" So just assume that everybody might have some hard of hearing issues. So speak loudly, slowly, and be patient. And the key is don't be rude or in a rush. That is also really important. Okay. Don't ever make the guest or even your employee feel like their disability is an inconvenience. We don't want that. Not good. At the end of the day, we all want to be treated the same. So greet them all like customers, right? But just let them know that you're here for them for whatever they need. When a disabled person visits your restaurant, greet them like you would greet any other customer. Do not make them feel stand out. Be discreet, be patient, have a smile, of course. Let them know that you're here for them for whatever they need. Okay, I think that's really important. The other day, I went to dinner with my dear friend Alex Elagudin, who's my partner at Wheeling Ford, and he's limited with the use of his hands. He's a quadriplegic. And this waiter obviously picked that up and very discreetly said, you know, can I take your piece of steak and I can ask the chef to cut it up in small pieces? That's all he said. And Alex and myself had just, of course, a tremendous smile. We were just over the moon. They brought it back and it made the night. I mean, we plan on going back to that. Just that little attention to detail goes such a long way. All right. I know that it's a very difficult art, but we have to condition ourselves. Don't judge. Some people's disabilities can make servers who are unfamiliar with the disabled uncomfortable. Sometimes you may deal with someone who has an unusual motor tic for you. It might be unusual for you, and you're thinking, are they mocking me or what? No, it's a motor tic, and you have to be respectful of it. There are those who have neuromuscular disorders, cognitive disabilities, and others are sometimes judged harshly by people who don't recognize disability. Sometimes you may see someone who has Parkinson's or MS, and they're shaking. Be incredibly empathetic and patient and kind to them. It's incredibly important. I have seen people who have made incredibly rude comments in the waiter station. Not okay to do, not at all. Okay. Those people are suffering, they're going through a lot. And the last thing they need to do or have is have you judge them when they're spending their money at your establishment and providing you with money for your lifestyle as well. So please, please, please be aware of that. Another thing too is give them time to settle. I know, especially this has happened in Europe, that I've got to get carried up 4 steps. By the time I get into the restaurant, I might need to use the bathroom. And you can see very clearly that the staff is getting incredibly impatient. Oh my God, we just carried him up the steps. He's taking our staff away. Now we have to go. Now he has to go to the restaurant. We've got to wait for him to come back. Let them know that they have all the time in the world. Let them know that they have time to settle. Do not be in a hurry. Disabled people may need more time to settle in before they are ready to start ordering. Just let them take the time. Again, someone who's part of the low vision community, they may need to scan the QR code and then really kind of listen to what's being repeated back to them about the menu. And so they need to absorb it and think about it. Again, give them time to settle. That is very important. Those with mobility issues might expend a lot of physical energy moving from one place to another. Okay, so, and I'm not just talking about people with who are in wheelchairs, but those that may have really bad hips, those that are walking, that are with walkers, so on. It's important that you don't make them feel rushed and give them time. Okay, and then also finally, um, give them extra time when they're checking out. When they have finished their meal, be considerate of the time it will take them to get going. Okay, I know that we're in an industry where we need to turn tables over and all that kind of stuff, but take your time and be patient. Now, everything that I said to you right now also applies to people that work in our industry. Okay, so if we're making it a safe space for people that are going to come to our restaurants or come to the tasting room to taste wine, it's also going to be a safe space for people with employees. Anyway, that's a couple of little important things that I also want you to be aware of. Now, going back to Contento, our staff here at the restaurant is going to be fully educated on to best serve guests with disabilities. Additionally, our restaurant is going to have a zero tolerance for any kind of discrimination, any kind of judgment. We want everyone to feel safe here, both with that come here as a guest, but also those that work here. Okay, um, people that want to work here that or aspire to have a career in hospitality that have a disability, this will be a place where they will have a chance to learn, gain experience, and find work opportunities through us. We're also going to host a project called the Solera Project, which is really important. And this is something I'm really excited to announce. The Solera Project is going to be a program designed to enhance the quality of life for people with disabilities through providing skill-based training and employment opportunities to marginalized individuals. The program will feature sustainable farm-to-table cuisine that highlight both local and organic ingredients from East Harlem's local markets, as well as the Hunts Point Produce Market in the Bronx. The team behind the Solera Project has close ties with the disability community throughout New York City. We plan to utilize our experiences and location to offer enriching programs that will enhance the quality of life for people living with disabilities, as well as other vulnerable and marginalized segments of our community. The Solera Project's programming will focus on two key areas: programs to build hospitality skills through job training, and nutritional programs that educate and promote healthy living. Contento's mission is to provide access to good food, as well as the resources to build a sustainable lifestyle to all. So, if you think it cannot be done, it could absolutely be done in your winery, in your business, in your corporation. I'm doing it now. I'm a small business owner. I don't have much money. I put all my money into this thing, but we have to start, and you have to create that template. And I ask you all to do the same thing. Finally, be aware of ableism, okay? Be aware of ableism. Some of you may not know what ableism is, but ableism is a discrimination and social prejudice against people with physical and psychological disabilities based on the belief that typical abilities are superior. It's something that you're going to hear a lot more of, and it's something that's incredibly important, okay? Just because someone has a disability doesn't mean that they have a lot to offer, okay? They may have even more. Don't assume because you see a person rolling up in a wheelchair applying for a sommelier position that they can't do that job. Yes, it's true that probably I can't carry 5 cases of wine, but I know I can sell a heck of a lot of wine, and I know I can bring a lot of people to the restaurant. And I think at the end of the day, if you can provide those statistics, that would go a long way. So, final remarks, and I'll go into a Q&A. I think it's really important that I, myself, and all of you should be on a journey that is going to make you grow. Try not to choose the easy path. Be ready to be in uncomfortable conversations. Those uncomfortable conversations will force both myself, will force you, will force everybody to be creative. But most importantly, appreciate every second that has been gifted upon you, and appreciate that moment when you have that uncomfortable conversation, because that's a learning moment for yourself and for everybody. Don't lose your passion, because passion is what gives you direction in your journey. but you need to have desire. You need to have the desire to go through those unexpected obstacles, because those obstacles, there are going to be many people who are going to tell you, especially if you're a disruptor and you're trying to make change in your company or in your winery, in your restaurant, we're going to tell you, no, that can't be done. You must continue to fight through those obstacles. During that journey, many mistakes are going to be made. There's going to be a lot of failures, but that is the only way you're going to achieve your goal and your objectives. You must fight your own fears and not be afraid of failure. You must embrace your failures, because your failures are going to be, it's what's going to teach you, and it's what's going to allow you to get to your accomplishments. A lot of great things can come from failure, but nothing will ever get accomplished if you remain in fear. Your personal evolution can happen if you refuse to adapt and live in complacency. Our life is about overcoming challenges and defeating our own limitations. Most importantly, forget about being the first, but make sure you leave the doors open behind you so you won't be the last. And I thank you so much. I know there's a very short amount of time. I know there's Julia Coney who's going to come right behind me. But in the meantime, I'm happy to answer any questions if you want to type it in. I hope it wasn't too much. I know it was a lot, but it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm here. And if not, you can always reach me through Instagram, through Facebook, through Twitter, through Yannick at Wheeling Forward, and I will respond as soon as I can. I also want to give a special thank you to Laura Brown right over here, who just did a great job interpreting this. I have a very thick New York accent and I talk very, very fast. So I don't know how she possibly understood me. So all credit to Laura. Thank you very much. You're just absolutely wonderful. Really, you're the best. No, I mean that honestly. But I also really want to thank Be the Change organization. What you're doing is fabulous. It's really great. All my love. And to all of you that attended this webinar, I thank you, because the more people that we have involved, the better we're going to make this in community, not just for people with disabilities, but for all. So thank you, thank you, thank you very, very much. No questions? Good. Thank you for all the wonderful comments. And please be sure to thank Laura Brown here as well. She deserves a lot of the credit. I don't know. Oh my God. Yeah, great job. Wonderful job. Great. I think that's it, right? I think I'm going to go back into the Be the Change conference. Absolutely. Great job, Laura. Really, really great job. Great. Thank you, guys. You can come see me at the booth. I'm at the Wine on Wheels booth. Hope to see you there. And you can always reach out to me. Thank you very much, all. Have a great day.